If you bought it, what gives companies the right to dictate how you use it? We're going to explore this conversation. Welcome to Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. I'm John. We're going to have a fantastic conversation with Mike, Jackson, and Artie. Say hi, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Their timing is off on that.
That was a dangerous you get everyone talking all at once.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I like it. Speaking of talking at once, we got a whole bunch of topics here. I'm hoping we can talk about all of them sequentially, not simultaneously. Did you guys hear Right to Repair was just signed in?
I heard that.
Mike, you got that story. I want to hear more about that.
It's not entirely a right to repair for everything, I don't think. It's President Trump signed a presidential memorandum titled Lowering the Cost of Living by Promoting the Freedom to Fix. So instead of thinking right to repair, think freedom to fix. And it deals mostly with auto vehicles. And in the summary I'm reading here, it says the directive orders the EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency, to expand access to aftermarket parts, and it breaks the California Air Resources Board's monopoly on certifying these parts nationwide. So it's one of those things where California seems to just dictate what the whole rest of the country gets to do, right?
So I'm going to cut you off because we're still in the intro. You're going deep now. I love it.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I thought you wanted to get right to it. Come on, let's go.
Well, we got a couple others. Well, Sony ripped away our purchases from a little bit ago. Now, that's only a couple hundred movies that you bought while you're on the PlayStation Network. So you bought it. They took it away from you.
I don't own a PlayStation, so I don't care.
Oh, millions of people affected by this one, but it's old movies that's on a network that, anyways. And then there's a big one I want to talk about. So we talked flock cameras at length, and we got some great conversation. A couple comments I want to bring forward in this one. We'll get to that in a second. Colorado just got called out. There's a town in Colorado that's been using a speed camera in a gotcha kind of way. They put it up right at the speed change, and they set it for the speed. So if you speed up before the speed increase, it goes 35 to 55. If you speed up 1 mile an hour over their threshold, you get a ticket for $340. Yay, that. Got just ripped around, and they're issuing out refunds, $2.3 million. Kind of fun. And then the last one I want to talk about is DuckDuckGo. There was an AI poisoning on that one. Punchline is
DuckDuckGo didn't use AI.
That's the punchline. Their research results brought forward proof that they're using AI. So that's kind of fun. But let's get back to the one that, Mike, you were going down, the right to repair or freedom to fix.
Freedom to fix. I only caught this briefly yesterday as it somehow got caught up in my feed, and I saw it. I was like, and like with anything political, we all have our own opinions. I don't necessarily agree with everything that any political leader does or doesn't do. But this was one I was like thinking, well, maybe I could kind of get behind this, because I actually have a car right now that I need to do some fixing on. It's more than 20 years old, and things need to be fixed and replaced and so on and so forth. So I guess some of the background on this was that people who were fixing their cars were getting thrown in jail for doing so. But as I'm reading this summary a little bit more, that there is a clarification that some of that may have been because they were violating EPA regulations by either like bypassing certain components or not installing, certain EPA safeguards, emission safeguards, things like that. And so I'm not exactly sure what the story is on that, but the EPA is concerned that by allowing this, that air quality and environmental quality is not going to be protected. And on the flip side, automakers are not going to be able to make the quick buck at the dealership for doing the certified authorized repairs.
I think it should be a choice. I mean, if we're talking air quality, go to China. Their air quality is just atrocious. We got no control over that.
You want to know something neat about China? China's railroads were using steam locomotive power all the way up to the end of the 1990s. Whereas the US, we stopped using steam locomotive power on railroads in basically the 50s. Some railroads as late as the early 60s, but by the mid to late 60s, pretty much every freight railroad in the United States had switched to diesel technology, internal combustion diesel motor, diesel electric technology. China made it last until the 1990s.
I guess that made the their version of the EPA freak out.
If they had one. I mean,
you know, the idea that you can't fix your car because you might bang into a law, you still have to pass emissions in several states. So if your car doesn't pass emissions after you fix it, the problem sorts itself out.
Yeah, I don't get the big deal. Is like, first of all, like, I don't know that I personally would do any repair that involved working on the emissions system. You know, that might be a little bit too technical for my comfort level. But even if I did, if it was just a matter of like, you have to replace a sensor or replace a part, you know, I mean, as long as I buy the part and it says this part is a direct replacement and it does what it's supposed to do and it meets the requirements, I'm good with that. Apparently, one of the things the EPA is concerned about is whether or not so-called certified parts or qualified parts are actually certified or qualified to do what they say they do.
So what if we have these things that are required, we have to do it this way? It's no longer a choice. Now it's requirement, much like a utility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So switch the car makers into nonprofits so we don't get gouged every time we have to do it their way. Put salary caps. And cars just now cost $13,000 instead of $85,000.
Yeah, I mean the whole automotive thing, actually, I have to not think about it because I get pretty mad about it every time I do, because I mean, just recently I had to renew my registration on my car, and because it's a 2004 and I live in Utah, you know, I have to go get the emissions tested every single year. And I'm just like, not a lot has changed between last year, yet I still have to pay, you know, $150 to go get it emissions checked and re-registered. And I mean, there's just all this junk, and then, you know, there's lots of the emissions test. They're not actually they don't actually test emissions anymore. They just are checking the computer to see if you have any issues, supposedly. And you could say, you know, oh, that does a similar thing, because, you know, the car manufacturers are required to, you know, throw an engine light if your catalytic converter is not performing up to snuff or whatnot. But then on top of that, you know, the government mandates insurance, and sometimes I'm looking at it, I'm like, at the end of the day, I think I pay more in registration, emissions tests, and insurance than I do on gas in my own stinking car, and it's just kind of ridiculous.
And that money goes to where?
Yeah, exactly. I wish I knew.
Yeah, it's one of those. I strongly feel that you buy a computer, you buy a car, you buy a house, you should be allowed to repair it. Now, electrical issues in your house, hire a professional. Don't risk that. Plumbing, yeah, it's on you if you do it wrong. And I mean that. It might be on you if you do it wrong. So, yeah. But I think it's our rights, our freedom to fix what we own. After the transaction, unless they're going to maintain it and do the work for free, it's mine. I can't believe it took this long for it to get actually approved and turned into a thing. I'm really hoping this lasts and doesn't get challenged and thrown out.
Yeah, I'm like trying to think of how we could kind of compare it to like a direct comparison to like technology. Like what comes to mind is there's like this big debate with cars, but then also we've seen recently in the news the debates of Bamboo, right? Bamboo Labs and their 3D printers, and then basically filing like a cease and desist to a guy who made an open source version of their software, right? And there are debates
which they're allowed because they're basing it off of an open source software.
Right. Now there were other people who were arguing, well, Bamboo has a right to, get angry at that because, maybe he used Claude to pull some API keys and figure out that stuff. So, I mean, there are ways to play both sides. I think we all are on the side of if you're going to use open source, you got to make it open source.
So but, I'll give them they do have a right to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a right to say no.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I feel like I joined in, I was listening on a conversation between two people and they were having this debate. One of them was on the side of Bamboo and the other on the side of this fellow who was doing open source. And I feel like what it comes down to, at least on the computer side, and I want to get back to the automotives as well, and we can figure out how this relates. But I feel like if you're going to develop a piece of software and you don't want people messing with it, and you want to be able to lock that down to your own environment or ecosystem, you've got to do it like Apple does it. You cannot use anything that is open source. It all has to be proprietary. And it's going to suck for, the open source community because they're not going to be able to do anything. But what Bamboo was trying to do is they're using, we want to use this that's open source, but we also want to lock you into our system over here.
I'll use a different phrase. Instead of open source, say crowdsourced. Because they reached out to the whole community to pull their development resources, their time, their energy, their effort, their development, put it into their product and charge us for it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's there's all sorts of different open source licenses. I don't remember which one it is that they use, but that's the agreement that you go into is as soon as you include, some open source licenses are like this. As soon as you include this project or part of this project into your own thing, it means your entire code base has to be open source. Obviously, there are different licenses with different things like that, but you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, And that's what Bamboo was trying to do. And so that's where I kind of butted into that conversation. Was like, well, actually, if they're going to play with open source, then you have to be open source. Like, that's the deal. And so anyway, when we get back to like the car thing, I don't know that there is such a thing as like closed source hardware. Like, there are patents and things like that, but if you're able to...
there is. There totally is. It's when you get... we were working on a Honda one time, and some of the bolts were 12.5 millimeter pitch. You couldn't buy a tap. You couldn't get any bolts except through the Honda dealership to fit that. It was impossible to fix what I accidentally screwed up without going to the dealership.
Okay, right. But that's just because there was limited availability. But could Honda prevent you, if you had a lathe in your shop, to make your own 12.5 millimeter bolt? Was anything like legally stopping you from doing that?
It doesn't, but when it's one of the main drive ones and it's a grade 8 hardened, I'm gonna have to go get the thing. Now the threads that we messed up, fun trick, since you guys work on cars, if you ever have messed up threads and you don't have a tap handy, take the bolt that fits, tighten in there as good as you can, wail on it with a hammer a couple times, and then tighten it a little bit more. Hit it with a hammer more, and just keep doing that. Lather, rinse, repeat. You will eventually bang the block or whatever it is you've messed up. You'll bend it back into shape because the bolt is harder than the block.
You hope.
Save me $2,000. Just saying.
I'm hoping I never get to that point, but yeah, sure. Okay.
That was a fun weekend. But yeah, we got mission accomplished. It worked. So the way car manufacturers have been doing this for years is they invent a new tool, a new bolt, a new pattern, a new thing. So you have to get it from them exclusively. Federal law has helped us with, you have to have parts on the shelf for 7 years. They still charge what they want. So that sucks. I like the Chevy 350. There are so many of those out there. You get any aftermarket part all day long. You could bolt together your own engine from aftermarket parts. Nothing stops you. It's all these regulations from the EPA and some of these others. Those are the ones that are getting in the way of this. So I'm curious where it's going to get challenged. But really, if you're driving it on the road, it should be road worthy. It should be legal, street legal to drive. I got no problem after that.
So I guess my final question would be, this legislation that was signed by the president, is it restricted to automobiles? So is it possible that this trickles down to technology? I guess that's my final question. I'll say if I have any others, we'll see if we have time for them. But that's what I want to know.
Well, does it cover Sony revoking your purchase?
Doubt it.
I doubt it.
No way.
But there's got to be protections for that too. We gotta. It's like the. And I know I'm gonna mess up the algorithm by saying don't kill games. Huge movement. So we're gonna call it don't unalive games from now on in those podcasts, because YouTube, the algorithm's awesome. We love the algorithm. Please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm and it helps our channel immensely. If you like what you're hearing, please give it a thumbs up. So Sony is yanking back what you purchased, and it's no longer allowed in their network. That's great for them because they got your money. They don't offer you anything in return. The don't unalive games. Nintendo.
Right? Stop unaliving games, right?
Yeah, stop unalive. Yeah, what did I say?
Don't.
I got too much blood in my caffeine stream, guys. It's not good. So stop unaliving games because Nintendo Wii, that network got shut down. Now you can't play that stuff. It should be arranged that when you spend $2,000 on games for your kids, that you should still be able to play that system. I've got an old Atari 2600. It still works. Plug in a game, it plays. Atari wasn't a company for a very long time. Okay, I can still play my system. Well, should these online games be rigged in a way so you don't have the cloud and all this? Artie, you had this story. Tell us more.
I had the what now?
The don't unalive games. Stop unaliving games.
So yeah, what I came across was that they came up to a bit of an issue in the. So it was not necessarily up for a vote, but it was getting reviewed by a panel in the EU, which is like an official. They can take action or they can choose not to take action, and they chose not to take action on this. But in the time between when the movement started and they made that decision, they no longer needed that panel's assistance because they had spoken to various members of the EU Parliament and had gotten enough on their side to actually get the legislation started and moving through the actual system instead of an organization saying you better stop doing this. We're paying attention to what you're doing in the video game industry, and you've got to stop doing this. It's now going to be a law saying, hey, guess what? This is what you got to do now. And from my understanding, the legislation for it in California is already made it past one round of voting. So it's.
When you say made it pass, you mean we can preserve the things we bought?
No, I mean that U.S. governmental thing. We've got House and Senate type things. It makes it past one of them, and now it's got to go past the other one, and then the governor has to sign it. So it's made it past the first hurdle.
When you say it passed, we're passing a law that says we get to keep the games we use.
We will get
Stop unaliving.
The law, how it's written in both instances, is meant to preserve future games. It does not affect anything that's already been released. And I'm guessing that when they get the final wording of it, there's going to be a start date for when games need to have this sort of preservation aspect to it.
2054.
Probably not that late, but
so I think maybe I can fill in some gaps here. From what I've read and what I've seen, Stop Unaliving Games, their mission is to prevent game developers from essentially just throwing an unalive switch on a game after it's reached like the quote unquote end of life. It's like, for example, if there is a game that you have that requires your client to reach out to a server to authenticate or whatever, say that game developer decides that they don't want to have to pay to keep the lights on that server anymore, that game that you have no longer works. There's no way for you to play it. What Stop Unaliving Games is trying to do is they aren't trying to force companies to keep the lights on, but rather provide an alternative that you yourself can run to allow you to continue to play your game. So they're not forcing them to keep the servers online, but rather provide an option for you to maybe even self-host or not require a login to the server in order to access what you paid for.
Exactly. There are exceptions to that. If it's a live service game site like Fortnite, they're not going to be required to create an offline version of that because it is explicitly you can only play it online. That MMO games and stuff like that. And yeah, that's fair. That's a carve out that is in the bill as it is right now. And
well, let's hope it makes it, because oh my goodness, if I got an offline version of whatever game I'm playing, I should be able to have it because I paid money for it.
Yeah. And
I have it yanked away because there's a contract dispute between Sony and somebody.
There was a game by, I'm not going to name the company, but it was a racing game, and they just, it was what started this entire movement. They ended the service for that game, and you played like 95% of that game offline. But
so here's a theoretical future, and I don't know if the law or the bill that they have is takes this into consideration. But let's say this goes through. What I could see game developers doing is everyone shifts to this new format where any game that you purchase will have essentially like a demo, quote unquote demo version that you're able to play offline if you own it. But then if you want to access the rest of it, you have to log in and get to their servers. And I feel like they'll do this in a way that will, get around whatever things that the bill has. So like I'm wary that, we won't accomplish a ton.
So the funny thing, you mentioned that, and having spoken to people that have developed games, that is going to take more effort to implement than just making an offline version of the game.
We just went full circle, Mike. We're back to the disc with the shareware version in it.
That's what I'm saying. I think we're going to go back to the disc version until then you have to put in the key and then you get access to the full thing.
It made me think there's a game that I used to play a lot. And then it's going on 20 years old, which is actually really amazing that it's that old. But it's not very active right now. For some reason, there's still servers up. And it still runs and it contacts the servers and it looks for players online. There are still a limited number of players they're playing, but it's not like it used to be where like all the servers had active games going on all the time, kind of thing. And it has an offline mode, but then it doesn't have, like, I'm just thinking about kind of in the bigger picture of this, what makes a really good game? Like, why do we play a game? Is it for the online interaction? Because I can understand that it's going to take resource to maintain that online connection. There has to be some kind of a central server to manage accounts, logins, user profiles, safeguards, because maybe there's somebody who harasses you, and so you have to be able to block them and all that stuff. So I can understand that it's like, hey, we really not a lot of people play this anymore. It costs us money to keep this server online and to keep it going. We don't want to expend that cost anymore. And so then it's like, but I look at this game and it's like somehow this company has, and here's the thing about this company, is that the game was originally like a $10 game or something like that, maybe $20 game. Then they cut the price to $10. And then at some point it became a free game. Like you could play it in a limited mode without paying for it. And you could only get like the first couple upgrades, And then once you finally paid your fee and you bought the full license, then you could get advantage of all the upgrades. Well, now you can get all the upgrades for free because it's just a free game, because they know they're not improving it. They're not taking it anywhere else. It's done. They've done as much as they can with it. And there's nobody out there actively looking for it to buy it. So just make it free. So if they happen to stumble across it, hey, yeah, free game, download it, run it, whatever. It's still a fun game. I mean, if you get a bunch of people online and play, in a little competition, it can still be a lot of fun.
How about this? You remember Mech Warrior?
Kind of.
I mean, we're going back in time here. What about Scorched Earth?
Yeah, Scorched Earth.
That was a fun one.
And that's the thing. It's like, but there's still like even like when you play on the servers, it has a setting where if there's not enough online players, the server will make up the difference by putting AI or bots or whatever, bot players that can actually be quite good, depending on the difficulty level set on the server. So there's an easy mode, medium mode, hard mode, expert mode, or, oh my gosh, I'm about to tear my hair out mode, or whatever. And so it can still be challenging. It can still be a lot of fun, even just playing against the computer when there's not enough online players. And I think it kind of goes back to the fact that game companies, if they're not figuring out what's truly fun, then they're figuring out just what is the most addictive thing that they can do, to keep people hooked so they keep coming back and keep spending the money to buy all the add-ons and whatever. because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about making money, and we got to keep making money. And once you saturate a market with something, well, now what are you going to do now to make the money?
So I had a bunch of friends when we were back in high school playing Half-Life.
Mm-hmm.
We got a bot package. So you could spin up 10 bots, 20 bots, however many you want in your game. And they were absolutely wicked. Like if you crank up the accuracy and everything, it's one shot and done constantly. So yeah, it was an impressive melee. I'm trying to find the right words for the algorithm here so it doesn't trigger us too bad. But the gameplay was non-existent because you would spawn and within 3 seconds you're down and you spawn again. Another 3 seconds later, you're down. Sometimes you don't even have 1 second and you're down.
Wow.
The gameplay was gone. You'd think they would get each other, but no, they were aiming for us humans. It was hilarious.
I mean, in this game, like I hated the bots because I think the bots cheat. I think the bots know, like, they're in cahoots with the server technically, and can look at the map and like, I can target you off screen. Like, I'm not even on the screen. You can't see me, but I've already got a target on you and I just shot you from 3 screen lengths away, you know, kind of thing. It's like, that's not fair. Like, I can't do that.
We discovered with Half-Life, okay, going back in time, dating myself here, we made a rule that nobody could be the server. Mm-hmm. You have to spin up a dedicated server because the person who has a server, every frame of the game is a live update with accurate data.
Yeah.
Everybody else, it was like
0
1 in 5
latency.
frames. So you could have 5 frames of movement. Now we're going back. It's not 60 frames. Definitely not 120 frames a second. We're getting like 30 frames a second play. Mm-hmm. So a good fifth of a second has gone by. Motion has happened, and events beyond your control will have happened by the guy that's running on the server.
The guy on the server gets to react first. No matter his reaction time, even if he's drunk, his reaction time still beats yours.
Guys, I'd love to talk this, but I think we got to move on to the next one. Speaking of drunk. Could use that as a segue moment.
Good segue.
Love finding those. So we got a question our last on. What's the name of the device that is installed in vehicles to shut it down remotely? The answer to that one's there's a couple answers here. So cars don't have a shutdown by remote except through the manufacturer. So OnStar or Vehicle Link or Tesla or some of those other ones, those can shut down the car and requires a little bit of extra stuff. But your standard, shall we say, roadside encounter with law enforcement won't yield a vehicle shutdown. Not by law yet. There's no device in the car to do that. What is in the car is a inebriation detector. So if you're incapacitated or your responses are sluggish, the car is mandated by law to not let you drive. So if you're panicked, if you're freaked out, you have the same symptoms. You're not allowed to drive. So, you know, you're in Oklahoma and tornado's coming. You can get out, load the kids in the car. You're a little panicked. Car says, oh, you don't seem fit to drive, so now you can't. Seems like a great idea.
Because that's a tricky one. I would like to know the stats of accidents for drunken drivers, right? Because I mean, with everything, there's pros and cons, right? That is obviously a huge con. You might be distressed and you might need to drive. But what about someone who's intoxicated, right? I feel like the law mandates you cannot drive intoxicated, and so if we have a system built into these cars to prevent someone from endangering someone else's life, I feel like that's a huge pro, right? So that's a tough one to think about. What do we allow to happen? Because I've also seen these systems. I mean, I think I saw on social media just people posting that they were tricking these systems by taping a bobblehead up in front of the camera, and the bobblehead never blinks. The bobblehead's never stressed, and so the bobblehead, is a
In fact,
very
he always agrees with you too, doesn't he? He just always agrees.
He's always in a good mood. And so I've seen people bypassing these systems with just a little bobblehead.
And then somebody goes and ruins it. Did you hear about the guy that is suing Tesla because it couldn't tell that he put a bobblehead?
No. I think that's what I saw. Yeah, I saw that. Plus, just some other people showing that they could do it.
It's like, wait, don't do it and then complain that it works. Like,
so yeah,
take
that's
some
really
responsibility.
tough. I'd like to know if people in the comments, like, which way they lean on this. I'd like to know how you guys feel. Like,
whatever happened to the like the breathalyzer starter interlock? Wasn't that a thing? Is that still a thing? I don't know.
I think you can install it.
Because
they've got rid of breathalyzers because there's other intoxicants that are more common now.
That's exactly the point I was going to get at, is because nowadays there's all kinds of substances that people are ingesting into their bodies and even just drowsy driving, you can have the same symptoms as someone who's under the influence, and so you could easily pass a breathalyzer, no problem, but still drive as though you were impaired. And so it's like, I don't know where you draw the line, because I also see, like, what if you're, in fear for your life? What if you're trying to flee from a bad situation? What if you're, you have an emergency in your car that, like, your kid is violently puking up and you have to rush him to the hospital? I mean, it's just, that's the wrong time for your car to shut down in the middle of the highway, when you need medical attention.
So here's the next. I think I agree. I feel like there's too many situations for you to be able to just shut down a car to try and catch drunken drivers, because there are so many other things that could be going on that aren't drunk driving, and I think morally everyone would agree that that person should be allowed to drive if they're under duress or whatever's going on. Mm-hmm. So I think the problem comes down to whether or not the vehicle should be functional. That's the word. Because what if you're driving on private roads? What do we care how the person is feeling? Right? I mean, they can endanger themselves. That is, that's a risk that they're taking. But what we want to try and prevent is people under the influence driving on public roads, because they're in danger to the public. So I feel like there's kind of no way to do that from just inside the car. I mean, there are ways. Let's be honest. There are ways, but that includes a lot that would involve a lot of privacy infringing technology.
Well, I guarantee you privacy wasn't something. Do you know what law passed this lovely piece of legislation to monitor your alertness? Guess what law it was that brought this to the table? Artie, you already know, so don't answer this.
I don't know.
Like, if you had to guess, what would the type of law, what the name of the law be?
I have no idea. Like, I'm not.
All right, for shouting out to our viewers' comment, look under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That's where you'll find this lovely piece of technology mandated on us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like as far from the topic as I could imagine. But okay, right? Go on.
Yeah, we're going to make jobs by preventing people from driving when they're, tired or stressed or needing to feed their family and taking care of stuff, or driving in winter conditions. I can't think of a more relaxed time behind the wheel than when there's 3 inches of snow blowing on my windshield and I can't see more than 200 yards. Super relaxed in those moments. Should the car pull over to the side of the road and let me get hit by the snowplow?
Honestly,
not?
the automation
In the fog,
aspect of this,
and get hit by everybody else. Jeez.
the automation aspect of this, you know, where you don't really have a say, it's just gonna like we're condemning you right now for what you're doing, even though you're not doing anything wrong. It reminds me of Carl's Jr. in Idiocracy. Your children are now property of Carl's Jr.
So we're getting into a place, and I'm going to segue to the next one while we got a minute. We're getting into a place where allowing technology, Jackson, to your point from several episodes ago, this is justice without mercy. The computers are making a decision, no appeal, no conversation, no intervention by somebody who can understand the situation beyond just what is in front of them. So let's go to flock cameras for a system that is exact and doesn't have any emotions or feeling or, care for privacy. Shout out to one of our viewers, left a comment on there's some back roads between a couple states where they're putting up cameras, and it feels like they're monitoring interstate commerce for substances that are not for sale in the state they're driving from to then go purchase. So there's a license plate record of people going across the state line, buying what is effectively contraband, and then coming back.
Is this an allusion to the 4th of July and fireworks?
No, it's a little more. Well, I guess it was medicinal use was the term for a while, but some states have turned it into recreational use now. So you have to go across the state lines to pick up some recreational use to then come back home and recreate. And license plate readers are tracking you on that. It's one of the many privacy concerns that are there. So should that be a thing? Should that be allowed? I think America has spoken on this one. We don't want surveillance to this level because the correlations can't be controlled and there's no human behind it to say yes or no. I don't want to dwell on Flock too much because we've spent a lot of time on Flock. Go ahead, Artie.
So using the example that Jackson put out, the border between Colorado and Wyoming, for growing up, that was one that occasionally you go to Wyoming to get fireworks because Wyoming is where you buy fireworks. If this is your first time hearing that, great.
Same thing for Utah.
So
Evanston was the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You buy the fireworks and then you come back. And, back in the day, they had I remember seeing people getting pulled over as soon as they came back into the state because they had somebody parked up by many of the fireworks stands. It was just like, yeah, this is a license plate, and then calling it back. So they were getting people bringing the contraband into the state. And this just automates that process and will get you later down the line instead of immediately. And in some cases, it could even get worse with, they have shown a habit because we've got, they went up on this date, this date, this date. So this is a habit of them doing this. Therefore, we can now get them for something worse when, it's just reminds me of Prohibition there.
I would have been tempted.
America.
Right? I would have been tempted to go park in the parking lot for 20 minutes, have them write down the license, drive, get pulled over with nothing in the car, do a big loop, go back, park in the parking lot for 20 minutes, park, drive, get pulled over with nothing in the car. Just do that 5 or 6 times, like a reverse.
Waste their time.
Reverse cry wolf.
Waste their time.
And by the 7th time, you're actually filled up with contraband. It could have worked. I don't know. It's kind of funny how the Colorado and Wyoming border, you've got, shall we say, medicinal use only on one side, now recreational, and fireworks on the other. But you can't have both in the same state. So if you're on the border, you can have a real good party. But if not, anyway, let's talk about justice and
Yeah,
how
don't forget which way you're going.
Hudson and Kernsey had an interesting moment. They put up a speed radar, a speed camera, and they were just hitting people over and over and over for fines. So there's a law in Colorado that says you have to give notice on camera systems, and the law enforcement in this town, this is documented by 9 News in Colorado, Denver. Go check out their channel. Very, very good journalism there. You had the law enforcement creatively interpret the law. It's supposed to be capped at $40. So they were charging $340 per infraction because there was some ambiguity in one sentence in the law that allowed them to charge more. Not true. The way the camera was positioned, the way the camera was rolled out, you're supposed to give 30 days warning period. They said, well, we put a camera in 2 years ago. That counts as our system. So any other camera in our system is covered from 2 years ago warning. So everybody that drives past it gets $340 fine. Thank you. Have a nice day. There's one teenage girl who was driving back and forth from work. Speed trap was set up. And I mean speed trap legitimately. We talked about it in the pre-show. If I put a camera right in front of a 55-mile-an-hour sign, what are the chances I'm going to catch you driving over 35 miles an hour at that moment of 55-mile-an-hour sign? Everybody speeds up to go past the sign. This camera was hitting everybody every time. This teenage girl got 14 tickets in a very short period of time. But before the first one made it to her, she did 13 more instances. She didn't have the money to pay the bill, the fine. Yikes. I mean, at minimum wage, that's her paycheck.
My understanding is that in Australia, they've got a pretty strict law enforcement on speeding. And my daughter's told me a little bit about that. Not that she's driven, but that other people she knows have been caught for doing just a little bit over. And it's a pretty steep fine. And we said, well, if you're driving, we're not paying any of your tickets because we can't afford it. The other thing is that, so here, there's two sides of it for me. On one side, as a driver on a highway in a road, I've always felt and believed, not that this is what the law says, but I feel that this should be okay, is that if I can see and read the speed limit sign, that's telling me, okay, this section of road that you're on right now is good for this speed limit. So if I can see 75 miles an hour, then I can accelerate to 75 miles an hour. Okay. Now, if it's a reduced speed, then yes, I should reduce my speed as soon as I see the same sign.
Yep.
So I say, oh, now it's down to 65. I better slow down now. Even before I pass the sign, I should be at 65. The railroad side of me, because the railroad rules a little different, because trains are a lot longer than your typical vehicle. And on a railroad, you're not allowed to speed up. So you have an increase in a speed limit on a certain section of track. You're not allowed to even speed up to that speed until the last car of the train passes that signpost. So you might see a signpost that says, okay, freight is good for 50 miles an hour, and you're currently going 35 miles an hour. You have to keep going 35 miles an hour until the last car passes that signpost. Now, locomotive engineers have tools. They have a way that they can, if they know how long their train is, they can start basically it's like a timer, a measure that measures the distance. Like if I hit a button right when I pass that signpost, it'll start counting off the feet or however, for however long my train is, and let me know, okay, you're now gone one whole train length past that signpost. Now you can pass it, right? So that's, and then flip side is that there's advance warning to say when the speed's going to be reduced. Like, okay, so coming up in a mile or half a mile or whatever it is, there's going to be a reduction. You got to get down to 35. You cannot pass that signpost going faster than whatever that posted speed limit is. And that makes sense because trains are much bigger, much heavier. We got to keep it safe, right? And so I'm kind of torn. Like I can get it where they want to catch people for going faster than where the actual marked limit starts. But again, it's like, got to give them some leeway, because again, here's the other thing is that on vehicles, your speedometer is not an exact reading. There's so many variations, like the diameter of your tires and all kinds of other things.
So they gave you 5 miles an hour on this one.
They gave you 5 miles an hour.
Yeah. So that
might be enough. I don't know, but like I've heard that some vehicles can vary off of actual speed by as much as 7 to 10.
Yep. So let me give you some sweet justice here. The lawmakers, Channel 9 got involved, and they went to the lawmakers who wrote these laws for the camera system. They said, this is not the spirit of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went back and reworded the law to have it clarify these points that were technical loopholes to squeeze the justice side of this technology. Loosen it back up. The idea behind the law, and I support this, was to encourage a behavior change with little slaps on the wrist so you don't keep doing it. Mm-hmm. I like that. But when you're going, the $340 fine was attached to a 25 over the speed limit thing. So if I put the radar right at the 55 mile an hour sign coming up from 35, and you speed up to 60 miles an hour as you hit that sign, boom, $340. So if your tires are wrong just a little bit and you're speeding up to hit 55 when you hit the 55 mile an hour sign, like all of us do, then you get the big fat ticket. So they fixed that. There's massive rebates for all of these out there. And I don't want to misrepresent it, but the thumbnail on that news says $2.3 million is being refunded to victims of this exacting justice. The reason I want to talk about this, the technology we're putting in place has that exact justice component. And Mike, you're absolutely right. Human behavior is human behavior. And if we're going to have computers decide these things with a 1 or a 0 kind of logic, now there's no equation. There's no human condition. There's no mercy in a situation. It is and will forever be what we told you it is.
The dark side to that is that it's going to be justification to say the humans shouldn't be in control, then we should be switching all our vehicles over to AI, where they have GPS maps, information, sensors, whatever, that will know exactly at what point I am good for 50 miles an hour up to this point, and then I'm good for 65 until this point, and then I'm reduced down to 30. It's going to be the exact robotic, like this. To me, it's just more justification to let the robots drive.
Yeah, I would say
robots drive.
If you're gonna enact exact justice in this form, then you can only enact exact justice on an exact device or an exact object. So, like, what I'm trying to say is, if you want to be able to penalize someone for driving, a mile over the speed limit, right before they hit a sign, you can't do that to a person. To a computer, you could I would say you probably should and could penalize that, because a computer, you can tell it exactly what to do and it'll do it. And so if you put a sign down that says this section of road is 55 miles an hour and everything before that's 35, it's very easy to tell a computer that's what you have to do. But a person is, well, smarter than a computer, and they can make their own decisions, and they're also not perfect in a way. And so I feel like you can't give them these perfect guardrails and guidelines and laws to an imperfect thing. No, it's
We
not
lost access
either.
We lost access to Mythos, the most powerful AI system we have developed yet, because they couldn't put the right guardrails on it.
Mm-hmm.
The human condition is king. I mean, it's one of those. Let's flip that on its head too. This also has a presumption of guilt, and you have to come prove your innocence.
Right.
Because the ticket is issued to the registered owner of the vehicle. This is not how the laws were written. If a driver breaks a law, the driver gets a ticket, not the company that owns the car or the person that owns the car.
Yeah, it's just, and that's like I said, that's like the dark side, because it's like it opens up a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
Of what does that mean? Really.
That means someone can steal your car, drive recklessly, and then you end up with 20 traffic infractions and a stolen car.
There are cases where that has happened, where somebody goes and commits a crime, and because you're the owner of the car, you get the punishment. There's a pro tip for anybody selling their car on Facebook Marketplace: take your license plate off the car.
Unless you're in a jurisdiction where you need to keep where the car belongs to the license plate and vice versa.
Nope. Don't sell a car with your license plates on it, because there's been cases where people buy a car, go commit felonies, and the owner of the car is the one who
the last registration is going to be the one that
the SWAT team shows up and changes your mood.
I understand. I'm saying in some jurisdictions, the license plate goes with the car regardless.
Oh, you're talking like California, where the plate is the car, not the owner. Yeah.
Yeah. And in New York,
that's fair.
Like, you leave the state, you turn in your license plate to the state of New York.
Yep.
For example, you don't get to keep your souvenir plates.
Well, think of this. Here's a bit of hope potentially. So if AI is driving the car and giving us tickets and stuff, we'll close out on this one. It's kind of a hilarious moment. Our president was declared deceased by DuckDuckGo. Cause was rabies. Somebody got in, poisoned using Reddit and several other web pages to source it, and then tricked the DuckDuckGo search in providing this news result.
But John, I thought DuckDuckGo didn't use AI.
That'll teach you to think, Mike. AI is going to think for all of us soon.
DuckDuckGo has been using AI. You just have the option to shut it off from all your results if you want to.
It's no longer opt-in. You have to opt out.
Boo.
I wish I could opt out of flock cameras. I'll tell you that. Do they have to respect the delete my data? I know that's federal law. You got to say take me off your list.
Well, I guess
I don't think they respect that.
It's data. It's data that they. Well, I don't know, because they take the pictures. I don't know.
Oh, here's a spicy one for you. Now, if our viewers have survived to the end of this, you're a legend. I love it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. So if this is an exact justice where you are guilty and you have to prove your innocence, do we get access to the flock system to prove our innocence?
Well, if it's not explicitly given,
I
apparently
think
it's
you
not that hard
should.
to get it
Evidence is
anyway.
evidence. It should be made available.
The thought I've got is law enforcement isn't out to prove we're innocent. Law enforcement is out there to develop a case to then submit to the court to have us charged with whatever it is they think we did wrong. That's the process. We're in rounding that by there's no investigation. You get a ticket, you did wrong, pay the bill, and you have to fight your innocence. Florida, they're starting to catch on to this, and they're realizing the laws haven't caught up to the technology. So, love to hear the comments on this. But until next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
And I bought a brand new taser. What happens next will shock you.
Oh my. Well, before that felony gets on the air, let's wrap this one up. Have a good night, everybody.